Every great era in football has a beginning. And Barcelona's golden era didn't start with Messi, or Xavi, or Iniesta. It started with a player who broke every rule of what elite football was supposed to look like. The club was in financial ruin. They were trophyless. The identity was gone. So when they bought Ronaldinho, everything changed. In that instant, Barcelona didn't just get a superstar, they got a heartbeat, a spark, a lifeline. But how did he do it? Well, it's time to find out. Before the magic, before Messi, or even Pep Guardiola, Barcelona were unrecognizable. By 2003, the club that once stood for beauty, rebellion, and imagination had become a hollow version of itself. Barcelona weren't feared in Europe. They weren't respected in Spain. They were becoming irrelevant. And the most painful part was how quickly it had happened. One bad decision after another, failed signings, internal fighting, financial chaos. It all built up until Barcelona became a club that looked like it was aging in fast forward. And then right in the middle of that darkness, a name began to echo: Ronaldinho. When Ronaldinho arrived, the reaction wasn't the universal celebration it is today, because this was a version of Ronaldinho that had too much flair, and too many in Europe thought he was too street, too joyful, and too unpredictable for a club drowning in crisis. They said Barcelona needed discipline, structure, order, all of the things Ronaldinho wasn't. Instead, they got a player who looked like he'd been pulled straight out of a carnival. A player who had just been chased away from the streets of France because he loved the nightlife too much. But inside the dressing room, something else started happening. Players who had forgotten how to believe began watching him in training, and they couldn't believe what they were watching. The elastico, the no-look passes, the dribbles that felt like illusions. And suddenly, the idea of Barcelona football didn't feel dead anymore. Something was awakening. Then came the moment that changed everything. Ronaldinho's home debut. Barcelona is desperate for a spark. Camp Nou is tense and quiet. He picks up the ball near the halfway line. One defender steps up, then another. Ronaldinho doesn't sprint. He glides, shifting the ball as if gravity is optional. And then, from 30 meters out, he unleashes a shot that rockets off the crossbar and in. Camp Nou erupts, not because it was a goal, but because it felt like a resurrection. That single moment rewired the entire club. It wasn't about the tactics or the win. It was about the pure joy this Brazilian phenomenon brought to Catalonia, the exact thing they had been missing. Ronaldinho didn't restore Barcelona with spreadsheets, formations, or instructions. He restored them with belief. But a goal doesn't fix a broken club. And despite the eruption, despite the spark and the feeling that something divine had stepped onto their pitch, everything was still fragile. Ronaldinho had brought light back into the building. But now, the real test was coming. Because joy alone couldn't save Barcelona. Not yet. The next chapter would demand something far heavier. Carrying a broken giant on his back while the world watched to see if the magic would fade. For a few weeks, Barcelona lived in the glow of a miracle. Ronaldinho had arrived like a jolt to the system, the kind of player you don't just watch, you feel. But behind that explosion of Ronaldinho in his first weeks was a much darker truth. Barcelona still couldn't compete. One highlight couldn't disguise the problems. The squad was tired, the confidence was unstable. And every time Ronaldinho created something impossible, it only highlighted how ordinary everything else looked. The tension grew when Barcelona met Real Madrid in the first Clásico of the season. All the pressure, all the expectation, all the attention fell on him, a player who had barely settled in. The team offered him little support, and Madrid suffocated Barcelona's midfield. Ronaldinho still found moments a double elastico through Guti, a curling shot close to the post, but brilliance wasn't enough to change the result. Barcelona fell short. And suddenly the narrative shifted. Is he really the one to fix this? Was this another failed rebuild? Does magic matter if it doesn't bring wins? That was the tension around Ronaldinho. The world expected salvation, but the club around him wasn't ready to be saved. Yet the story isn't about the struggle. It's the moment everything flipped. In a match where Barcelona were flat, the match was heading toward a dull, embarrassing draw. And the Camp Nou, the same crowd that had screamed in disbelief months earlier, now sat in silence. Then Ronaldinho received the ball on the left. Two defenders closed in on him. Another shadow covered the inside lane. There was no space, no angle, no obvious idea. And then, in a single movement, he invented one. A toe poke, the most disrespectful finish in football, delivered with the ease of a street kid scoring with no shoes on concrete. The goalkeeper froze. The defenders froze. Even the commentators froze. Barcelona won because one man refused to accept that a bad night should stay bad. That was Ronaldinho's real power. Not the dribbles, not the smiles, not the samba, but the ability to shift the emotional temperature of the entire club with a single touch. He didn't just play football, he changed moods, he changed nights, he changed expectations. But just when Barcelona began to breathe again, the setback arrived. The strain of carrying a club on his back caught up to him. He was injured and was to be sidelined for weeks. In his absence, Barcelona's season was exposed. They couldn't keep the ball, couldn't break teams down, and couldn't inspire the crowd. Barcelona didn't just miss Ronaldinho, they were unrecognizable without him. And that is where the real tension began, because Barcelona weren't just waiting for their star to return. They were waiting to see whether the man who lit the fire could survive the weight of carrying an entire club on his back. When Ronaldinho stepped back onto the pitch, after weeks of watching Barcelona unravel, the situation was far worse than anyone wanted to admit. Barcelona were 12th in the league. They weren't just missing his skills, they were missing the joy, the courage, the electricity he carried with him. But something else had unraveled during his injury. Before the setback, Ronaldinho had been the entertainer, the man brought in to brighten a broken club. When he returned, he moved like someone who finally understood the weight of the shirt he was wearing. He wasn't here to decorate Barcelona anymore. He was here to carry it. And very quickly, Europe was about to meet that version. The shift didn't announce itself with some grand spectacle. It revealed itself in moments of first touch that calmed the crowd, a pass that reorganized the entire team, the swagger of a man who refused to let Barcelona sink any deeper. But nothing captured this transformation more brutally than the night at the Santiago Bernabeu, a stadium that had embarrassed Barcelona repeatedly, a rivalry that felt older than the players themselves. A match where Barcelona didn't just need a win, they needed a reminder of who they were supposed to be. Madrid pressed high. They pushed Barcelona back. They tried to suffocate every build-up, knowing the visitors were mentally fragile and physically drained. And Xavi would later say, "That was the night everything changed. That was the beginning of the rise." And he was right. From that moment, Ronaldinho stopped playing like a newcomer, trying to impress a crowd. He played like the face of Barcelona's rebirth. Over the final stretch of the season, he scored 15 league goals, created chances everywhere on the pitch, and carried the emotional weight of the team every single week. Barcelona didn't climb the table because they suddenly became a better team. They climbed because Ronaldinho refused to let them stay where they were. From 12th to 2nd place, dragged by a single player who was doing things La Liga hadn't seen before. But here's the part the world didn't realize at the time. This version of Ronaldinho was just the warm-up, because in the next season, something else was coming, a version so dominant, so joyful, so untouchable, that it didn't just change Barcelona, it changed the entire sport. And that new version was about to step onto the stage. By the time the 2004-2005 season began, something fundamental had shifted at Barcelona. They were no longer a team begging Ronaldinho to save them. They were becoming a team learning how to follow him. The collapse during his injury spell, the climb from 12th to 2nd, the reignited Bernabeu confidence, all of it had turned the dressing room into a group that finally understood one truth. Ronaldinho was here to lead Barcelona. But leadership, the real kind, only reveals itself under pressure. And the first pressure test came in Europe, the tournament where Barcelona always carried scars. Their Champions League campaign led them into a showdown with Jose Mourinho's Chelsea. Two legs, two different footballing planets. Barcelona tried to build from midfield. Chelsea suffocated everything with power. The tie became a blur of intensity, mistakes, and moments that felt bigger than the players on the pitch. And when Barcelona fell behind at Stamford Bridge, the season felt like it was slipping through their fingers. Then Ronaldinho took the ball, surrounded by blue shirts, back to goal. No space, no run-up, no momentum. Logic said he had no shot. Ronaldinho ignored logic. With the smallest backlift imaginable, Almost disrespectfully casual, he toe-poked the ball through 3 defenders and passed Petr Cech before anyone could blink. Later, he described it like this: "It was like someone pressed pause, and for 3 seconds all the players stopped, and I was the only one that moved." But even that moment of frozen time genius couldn't save Barcelona. Chelsea advanced, Barcelona were out, and for most players, elimination breaks momentum. For Ronaldinho, it ignited something. Back in Spain, he played the league season like a man who had decided the world would not get the final word on him. There was no opponent he couldn't humiliate, no angle he couldn't invent, no atmosphere he couldn't transform with a flick of his boot. Barcelona began to rise, not through tactics, not through structure, but through belief. A belief created by a single player who felt inevitable every time he touched the ball. Carles Puyol said it best: "He gave Barcelona our spirit back." He made us smile again. The team stopped surviving. They started dreaming. Barcelona won La Liga, their first league title in years. Ronaldinho was unstoppable across the season. Goals, assists, chance creation, the emotional gravity of the entire club resting on one man who never seemed to feel the weight. On the 20th of December 2004, it became official. Ronaldinho was named FIFA World Player of the Year, and the world finally accepted what Barcelona had already known. The best footballer alive wore a toothy grin and played like football was a dance he had choreographed himself. But if this was Ronaldinho at full power, what happens when a magician who already rules football reaches his next level? The answer would define the greatest season of his life. Success usually softens players. It makes them comfortable, predictable, satisfied. But Ronaldinho entered the 2005-2006 season with the opposite reaction. He treated being the best in the world as the starting point, not the finish line. Barcelona felt it immediately. Ronaldinho wasn't chasing trophies anymore. He was chasing immortality. The transformation became obvious not in a goal, but in how opponents behaved. Defenders who once rushed toward him were now backing away, waiting for help, terrified of becoming the next highlight that the world would replay forever. And then came the night that proved this new version of Ronaldinho wasn't just brilliant, he was inevitable. Barcelona arrived in Madrid, carrying pressure from Europe, expectation from the league, and the weight of a rivalry older than anyone on the pitch. Ronaldinho carried none of it. Madrid tried everything, doubling him, blocking passing lanes, forcing him inside, forcing him wide. Nothing worked. Then the moment came. A fake run, a hesitation, a move so simple and yet so violent to the defender's dignity. They were left turning in different directions, while Ronaldinho glided through untouched. He finished the play with the calm of a man dribbling on the beach, sliding the ball past Casillas like the whole scene had been rehearsed in his head. The Bernabeu froze. Not in anger, not in shock, but in respect. Then it happened something only one Barcelona player had ever received before. Real Madrid fans stood up and applauded Ronaldinho. Later he said, "I will never forget it. It is very rare for a footballer to be applauded like that by the opposition." And in that moment, football understood something very simple. This wasn't skill, this wasn't flair, this was mastery. But Ronaldinho didn't slow down. In the Champions League, he was even more devastating. He danced through Chelsea's defence in the round of 16, scoring a goal that bent physics and logic in the same motion. He eliminated Benfica with a goal that redefined balance and precision. And in the semi-final against Milan, when Barcelona needed a moment of clarity, he delivered a perfect assist to Ludovic Juli, a pass so surgical, it split one of the toughest defences in Europe. Frank Rijkaard summed up the season with the simplest, most accurate description. He gives joy, and his level is so high, the whole world adores him. Barcelona breezed into the Champions League final, not because they were the strongest squad in Europe, but because they had the strongest force in football. On the 17th of May 2006, Barcelona lifted their first Champions League trophy in 14 years. Ronaldinho had delivered a season worth framing. 26 goals, countless assists, and total domination across every competition. A La Liga title, a Champions League title, the double, the clean sweep. He was rewarded with every award football could give. Ballon d'Or, FIFA World Player of the Year, FIFPro Player of the Year, UEFA Club Footballer of the Year. But while the world was celebrating Ronaldinho's dominance, something quiet and dangerous was beginning beneath the surface. A shift, a crack, a foreshadowing of a different chapter. By the time the new season started, it felt like Ronaldinho had completed football. He'd won the Champions League, he'd won back-to-back La Liga titles, he'd won every major individual award the game could offer. For most players, this is where the story naturally flattens out. You keep playing well, you defend what you've won, you slowly become just another star. Ronaldinho didn't come back as just another star. He came back looking like someone who had decided that if football was already his playground, he might as well start bending reality for fun. That season, there was something different about his confidence. He wasn't just trying to beat defenders, he was toying with the idea of what a football action could even look like. The goal against Villarreal is the clearest example. The ball floated into the box. Most players would try a header, maybe take a touch, maybe lay it off. Ronaldinho did none of that. He cushioned the ball on his chest, let it hang for a second, as if gravity had agreed to wait, then spun and launched into a bicycle kick that didn't just beat the keeper, it stunned the entire stadium into waving white handkerchiefs in admiration. He walked off as if it was nothing special. After the game, he admitted, "This is the goal I've dreamed of since I was a boy." It wasn't just theatre, it was a reminder he could do things that nobody else would even think to try. Around him, Barcelona were still a machine. They could dominate possession, they could outrun teams, they could overwhelm almost any defence. But there was always the same pattern. When games became slow, frustrating, cagey, everyone still turned their eyes to one person. Give the ball to Ronaldinho. See what happens. He'd drop into the left half space, demand the pass, and orchestrate the entire attack with one touch, sometimes without even looking. A disguised through ball here, a no-look pass to Eto'o there, a quick give and go with Messi that left 3 defenders chasing shadows. Even his teammates ran out of words. Either Johnson put it simply, when you play with him and see what he does, nothing surprises you anymore. One of these days, he'll make the ball talk. On the numbers, it looked like he was as devastating as ever. He hit 21 league goals, the best domestic scoring return of his career. He was still producing assists, still drawing double teams, still doing things no one else could replicate. From the outside, nothing looked wrong, but inside the club, the first tiny cracks had started to appear. He was still winning games almost by himself. But now, the effort to keep the whole show running was heavier. The training sessions weren't as sharp, the recovery wasn't as meticulous, the nightlife stories started appearing as often as the highlight reels. Barcelona's season mirrored that tension. They pushed deep into every competition. They competed, they entertained, they scored, but in the moments that decide everything, the last rounds of the Champions League, the title run-in in La Liga, the margins turned. Barcelona went out of Europe earlier than expected. They finished the league level on points with Real Madrid and still lost the title on head-to-head. Ronaldinho had his best scoring season in Spain, but Barcelona finished with fewer trophies. For the first time since he arrived, there was a question the club didn't really know how to answer. If Ronaldinho is still playing like this, why does it feel like the team isn't growing with him anymore? That was the quiet shift. Because up to this point, his magic had always felt like the beginning of something bigger, the new Barcelona, the rebirth of the club, the foundation for a dynasty. Now, for the first time, his magic was starting to feel expensive. It still won games. It still filled stadiums. It still sold shirts and inspired kids all over the world. But beneath it, the structure was wobbling. And as the next season began, everyone would discover what happens when the player who made football look effortless starts treating the game like it will always be that easy. In the 2007-2008 season, the spell was still there, but the sorcerer behind it wasn't. Ronaldinho was still good, but the sharpness, the obsession, the fire that once dragged an entire club from the ashes, that was fading, and Barcelona felt it immediately. Before this season, Ronaldinho had been the emotional engine of the team. When he danced, the whole squad danced with him. When he attacked, the stadium leaned forward like a single body. But now, something was off pattern. Training sessions were missed, recovery days became rumours, nights out became headlines. And even though everyone tried to pretend nothing was happening, the performances told the truth. The magic was still there, just less often. Instead of appearing every game, it appeared in bursts, brilliant, bright, but brief. Then came the injuries. Small at first, then bigger, then persistent. A muscle here, a knock there, a tight hamstring that refused to loosen. The body that once carried him lightly through 3 defenders was suddenly fighting him. Barcelona were unraveling too. Rijkaard's system no longer pressed with intensity. The locker room was divided. Ito was frustrated. Deco looked tired. And the young 20-year-old waiting quietly behind Ronaldinho, Lionel Messi, was rising fast. The club that Ronaldinho once revived now looked like it needed to be revived again. There were still flashes, little storms of magic that made everyone forget the worries for 5 seconds at a time. The overhead goals, the free kicks, the no-look passes, moments that reminded everyone exactly who they were watching. But football, especially a club like Barcelona, doesn't survive on moments. The Champions League campaign collapsed early. La Liga slipped away. The Camp Nou, once a theatre he commanded with pure joy, began to feel heavy around him. A final injury that ended his season didn't just take Ronaldinho off the pitch, it closed an era. Sitting on the sidelines in street clothes, watching Barcelona stumble without him, it became painfully clear. Ronaldinho had become too big for the club and somehow not big enough for the version of themselves they wanted to become next. Even Joan Laporta, the president who had bet everything on him, said it. He needs a new challenge. Not out of bitterness, out of acceptance. Ronaldinho wasn't finished. But the Barcelona chapter, the greatest years of his life, the years that changed the club forever, had reached its final page. And when he walked onto that field in Venezuela for an anti-racism exhibition, scoring twice and assisting 2 more, nobody realized it. But that was the last time Barcelona would ever see him wearing their colors. When Ronaldinho finally left Barcelona in 2008, it didn't feel like a transfer. It felt like the end of a story football wasn't ready to close. He arrived as a 2-3-year-old, with crooked teeth, loose laces, and a smile that didn't match the crisis he walked into. He left as the man who rebuilt a kingdom. And yet, the ending was quiet. But here's the truth. Barcelona never said out loud. Ronaldinho didn't just revive the club. He reshaped what it meant to be Barcelona. Before him, the club was drowning in debt, confusion, and identity loss. After him, the club had a blueprint, a soul built entirely on the belief that football should be played with imagination, confidence, and freedom. And that blueprint didn't end with him. It led to Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, the generation who changed football, all rose inside the world Ronaldinho created. Messi has said it openly. He was responsible for the change in Barcelona. None of what came later would have happened without him. Ronaldinho didn't just fix a broken team, he planted the seeds of the greatest era in Barcelona history. The tiki-taka revolution, the Guardiola dynasty, the treble-winning monster of 2011. Trace the origin point, and it always leads back to the same moment. A young Brazilian who walked into the Camp Nou and turned pressure into playfulness, fear into joy, and decline into destiny. He changed the atmosphere. He changed the standards. He changed the culture. He changed the temperature of the entire club. The trophies, 2 La Liga titles, a Champions League, a Ballon d'Or, the applause of the Bernabeu, those are the achievements people list on paper. But the impact, that lived in the streets. Kids copying his elastico, adults waiting for his toe pokes, crowds chanting before he even touched the ball. A whole city, a whole footballing world, rediscovering the magic they forgot existed. And when he left, he didn't leave a void. He left a path Messi would sprint through, a path Xavi and Iniesta would refine, a path that would turn Barcelona from a struggling giant into a dynasty. The final paradox of Ronaldinho is simple. He wasn't the greatest Barcelona player ever, but without him, Barcelona would have never become great again. Ronaldinho's story at Barcelona will always read like a miracle that happened too quickly to understand in real time. 5 years, 1 magician, and a transformation so deep that it changed the direction of football history. He didn't stay long enough to dominate an era. He stayed just long enough to rewrite the foundations of one. And that's why his legacy hits differently. Superstars win trophies, legends win hearts, but very few change the destiny of an entire club the moment they arrive. Ronaldinho did. If you enjoyed this story of the magician who changed a dynasty before it even began, subscribe. And if you want to see another football tale that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew, click the video on your screen now. The magic continues there.